All right, today we're going to unpack the legal DNA of one of India's most important investigative agencies. And we're going straight to the source, the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946. This is the foundational law that really set the stage for everything that came after, and we're going to break down exactly how it all works.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. What was the whole point of this law way back in 1946? Well, the Act's own introduction gives us a pretty clear answer.
So, you can see the keywords right there in the text. This was never about creating just another regular police force. The entire idea was to build a special one, the Delhi Special Police Establishment, or DSPE, and its job to investigate certain specific offenses that the central government flags. It was designed to be a specialized unit right from day one.
Now, a special force like this needs a special kind of leadership, right? One that's hopefully shielded from outside pressure. The Act actually tackles this head-on by setting up a very specific, very high-level process for picking its leader, the director.
And what's really interesting here is how this appointment happens. The recommendation for the director doesn't just come from one person. It comes from this powerful three-member committee. You've got the head of the government, prime minister, then the leader of the opposition, and finally the head of the judiciary. This whole structure is designed to make sure the choice is balanced, independent, and has some real cross-party consensus.
And to protect that independence even more, Section 4B of the Act gives the director a guaranteed minimum term, 2 years. This is so critical. It means the director can do their job without constantly worrying about being removed for political reasons. It gives real stability and autonomy to the whole organization.
The Act also sets up this pretty fascinating system of dual supervision. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. See, for investigations under the Prevention of Corruption Act, the oversight comes from the Central Vigilance Commission, an independent body. But for everything else, the superintendence rests with the central government. It's this built-in separation of oversight that really depends on the crime being investigated. Okay, this brings us to what is probably the most debated part of the entire Act, jurisdiction. I mean, how does a central police force operate inside states that have their very own police? This is where that classic federalism puzzle really comes into play.
So the process is basically this mandatory two-step dance. First, the central government can issue an order saying, hey, we're extending the DSP's powers to your state for these specific cases, but, and this is the absolute crucial part, that order is not enough. The state government then has to give its consent. Without that green light, the central force simply cannot operate within that state. And look, this isn't just someone's interpretation. The law is totally explicit about it. Section 6 makes it crystal clear. You could say this single sentence is the bedrock of state authority in this whole framework. It acts like a constitutional firewall, making sure a state's policing powers aren't just overridden without its express permission.
So we have this force with a national reach, but it's clearly limited by state consent. The Act, though, doesn't stop there. It also builds in other kinds of safeguards, especially around who can be investigated. It's definitely not an unlimited mandate. Which leads to a pretty direct question, doesn't it? Can this special police force just decide to kick off an investigation into any senior government official it suspects of something? Well, according to the Act, the answer is a clear no.
So Section 6A introduces what's often called the prior approval rule. Basically, it means that to even start an inquiry into a top central government official for corruption, we're talking joint secretary level and up, the DSPE first has to get a go-ahead from the central government itself. It's like a protective filter for the senior bureaucracy. But, and this is a huge but, the law carves out a vital exception to that rule. If an official is caught red-handed, literally arrested on the spot while taking a bribe, then no prior approval is needed. This creates a clear path for immediate action in the most blatant corruption cases, making sure that protective filter doesn't turn into an escape hatch. So when you kind of step back and look at the whole picture, you start to see a really clear design philosophy emerging. The 1946 Act was basically engineered to create a powerful, specialized investigative body, but one that is also deliberately and very carefully constrained by all these different layers of checks and balances. And all of this leaves us with one final crucial question about this law that's been around for almost 80 years. It creates a force with national power, but then tethers it completely to state consent. It gives it a mandate to fight corruption, but then requires approval to investigate the highest ranks. So you have to ask, is this framework ultimately built for balance, or is a design that's just destined for conflict in a federal system? That's definitely something to think about.